The amphitheater stretched across 3 levels, carved from polished obsidian that reflected the bioluminescent strips running along the walls. Thousands of cadets filled the tiered seats. Fraxian shock troops with their chitinous armor gleaming. Cathar hunters perched on specialized platforms. Crystalline luminari refracting light in brilliant cascades, and dozens of other species from across the Galactic Coalition. The air hummed with anticipation and the metallic temps of recycled atmosphere. Near the front, seated in a standard-issue chair that seemed almost quaint compared to the specialized seating around him, sat a lone human in a crisp Earth Defense Force uniform. His posture was relaxed, hands folded in his lap, eyes forward. Around him, alien cadets leaned across their companions to whisper and gesture, mandibles clicking, tentacles coiling with amusement. One Varaxian nudged another, his thorax vibrating with what passed for laughter among his kind. The human didn't react, didn't acknowledge the attention. He simply waited. The instructor materialized at the podium, towering insectoid general whose species had conquered 12 systems before joining the coalition. His compound eyes swept the crowd as holographic projections flickered to life above him, displaying comparative data in 15 languages simultaneously. Combat efficiency metrics, he announced, his voice translated through neural implants into every cadet's understanding. The foundation of modern warfare. Charts bloomed in the air-kill ratios, casualty rates, tactical effectiveness scores. Varaxian shock troops, 47-1. Cathar hunters, 63-1. Luminari, psychers, 89-1. The numbers climbed as species after species displayed their martial prowess, each statistic accompanied by combat footage of devastating efficiency. Then the display shifted. A small blue-green planet rotated slowly in the holographic field. Earth, the instructor said, and something like condescension crept into his translated tone. Unremarkable gravity, minimal natural defenses, no endemic psionic capability. Class M designation, population 7 billion, recent coalition inductee. He paused, mandibles spreading in what might have been a smile. Curious little creatures, fragile by galactic standards. Yet they persist in requesting frontline deployments. The amphitheater rippled with clicking, buzzing, harmonic laughter. A crystalline cadet 3 rows back called out, light refracting through his faceted body. "What's the kill ratio for one Earth Marine?" Then the question detonated into full-throated mockery. Cadets doubled over, support appendages clutching seats, respiratory systems working overtime. The human remained still, a statue in a sea of motion. The instructor raised one serrated limb, and the laughter died to scattered chuckles. His compound eyes fixed on the crystalline cadet, then swept to the human. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we should ask the human himself." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Every eye, sensor, and perceptive organ turned. The human cadet rose slowly, boots striking the metal floor with precise, measured impacts that echoed through the sudden silence. He didn't hurry. Each step up the aisle carried the weight of deliberation, and cadets leaned back instinctively as he passed, creating a corridor without conscious thought. The instructor watched him approach, mandibles twitching. "Cadet," he said, when the human reached the podium, "enlighten us. What is the ratio?" The human stood at the podium, hands resting lightly on its edge. He scanned the amphitheater, thousands of faces, inhuman and expectant. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, forcing the room to strain for every word. "It depends on the battlefield," he said. "But let me tell you what I've seen." His hand moved across the holographic controls. The comparative charts vanished, replaced by raw combat footage. A colony world under siege, prefabricated structures collapsing under artillery fire, trenches filled with mud and smoke, the acrid temps of chemical weapons almost visible through the recording, and humans covered in grime, blood seeping through combat armor, eyes hollow with exhaustion, still advancing, still firing, still refusing to break. Alien murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The footage was visceral in a way their sanitized tactical displays never were. "The ratio isn't measured in numbers," the human said softly, his eyes never leaving the projection. "It's measured in the will to stand when everyone else falls." The mocking energy that had filled the room earlier had evaporated, replaced by something uncertain and uncomfortable. The crystalline cadet, who had asked the question, sat rigid, his internal light dimmed. The human's fingers danced across the controls again. "You want context?" he asked. "Let me give you Earth's history. Images cascaded ancient battles with primitive weapons, soldiers standing shield to shield against impossible odds, cities burning while defenders fought street by street, building by building, frozen wastelands where armies clashed in temperatures that would kill most galactic species in minutes, desert warfare, jungle warfare, urban warfare, orbital warfare, an endless procession of conflict, each more desperate than the last. We've been outnumbered since the beginning," the human said. "It's our natural state." A six-armed hexapod instructor assistant shifted forward, translator crystals glowing. "History is irrelevant. Statistics matter in modern warfare." The human nodded slowly, acknowledging the point. "Then, let's talk numbers." The projection changed to tactical readouts, official battle logs with timestamp authentication and command verification. 12 Marines, the human said, highlighting coordinates on a mountain pass. 700 raiders. 3 days, no reinforcements, no resupply, no air support. His finger traced defensive positions that should have been overrun in hours. Not a single step back. When relief forces arrived, they found the pass still held. He let that sink in before continuing. "Or maybe you prefer void combat. New footage orbital boarding actions where humans fought in hard vacuum. Magnetic boots, the only thing keeping them attached to hull plating." The recording showed Marines using improvised weapons, tearing through bulkheads with shaped charges, engaging enemy boarders with a ferocity that made several cadets look away. Superior technology, the human observed. Superior numbers. Superior position didn't matter. The instructor's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. "You're exaggerating. Combat footage can be edited. Contextually misleading records." The human interrupted, his voice cutting through the protest. "Official coalition battle logs, verified by your own command structure, cross-referenced with enemy reports where available." He projected a wall of data timestamps, combat camera feeds, casualty reports, tactical assessments from 17 different species intelligence agencies. The documentation was overwhelming, irrefutable. Cadets leaned forward, watching feed after feed of Marines breaching fortified positions. Some wielded standard-issue rifles, others used combat knives in close quarters. One recording showed a Marine whose weapon had been destroyed, continuing to fight with improvised clubs and eventually bare hands, augmented only by powered armor, taking down enemy combatants with brutal efficiency until reinforcements arrived. The human paused the footage, letting the image freeze on a Marine standing in a corridor filled with fallen enemies, his armor rent and bleeding but still standing. "What's the kill ratio for a Marine?" the human asked, the silent amphitheater. 10 to 1, 100 to 1. He shook his head slowly. "Those are amateur numbers." The silence was absolute. Even the environmental systems seemed to hold their breath. Every being in that vast chamber waited, suspended between curiosity and something approaching dread. The human leaned forward, hands gripping the podium edge, and his voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "It's until the Marine stops breathing." The words hit like a physical force. Cadets jerked back in their seats. The Vraxian, who had laughed earlier, made a sound like metal scraping stone. A luminary's internal light flickered and steadied uncertainly. The instructor's compound eyes dilated fully. "You're claiming," he said carefully, "that a single Marine could defeat an entire company." The human smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I'm not claiming anything. I'm telling you what happened." His hands moved again, and the projection shifted to a desolate lunar landscape Titan Ridge, scarred by artillery and laser burns. "Captain Marcus Alvarez," the human said quietly, 47 years old, 23 years of service, last survivor of fire-based Shepherd when enemy forces overran the position. The footage showed a single bunker, half collapsed, surrounded by a sea of enemy drones, thousands of automated killing machines advancing in perfect coordination. He could have surrendered, could have retreated through the escape tunnels. Instead, he stayed at his post and fought. The recording fast-forwarded through 18 hours of continuous combat. The bunker's automated defenses fell silent one by one as ammunition depleted and systems failed. But the defense never stopped. Small arms fire, grenades, improvised explosives. When reinforcements finally broke through enemy lines, the recording showed what they found. The projection zoomed out slowly, revealing the full scope of the battlefield. Mountains of wrecked drones, twisted metal, and shattered components piled in geometric patterns where they'd fallen in waves. The bunker sat at the center like a stone in a river of destruction, its walls scorched black, half its structure collapsed, but the flag still flying. And inside, Captain Alvarez, slumped against the remaining wall, his weapon empty, his armor breached in 17 places, his last breath spent minutes before rescue arrived. The cadets stared at the image. Several made unconscious gestures of respect or prayer in their respective traditions. The human's voice was barely audible. He was the last one alive. He made sure he was the last one standing. The instructor's mandibles hung slack. The mocking energy that had opened the lecture was not just gone, it had been replaced by something else entirely. Some cadets looked awed, others looked afraid. The human cadet stepped away from the podium, his duty apparently done. Then he stopped. Slowly, deliberately, he turned back. "You asked for a ratio," he said to the assembled thousands. "Here's the answer." The holographic display cleared, and a single line of text appeared in every language simultaneously, stark and simple against the black. 1 Earth Marine equals however many it takes. The amphitheater could have been a tomb. Not a single being moved. Respiratory systems cycled in silent rhythm. Bioluminescent strips pulsed with their programmed cadence. But no one spoke. No one shifted. No one dared break the moment. The crystalline cadet who had started this with his mocking question tried to laugh, to salvage some dignity, but the sound emerged, cracked and uncertain, dying in his throat. Another cadet, a young Cathar hunter, on his first academy rotation, whispered to his companion, That's impossible." The human's eyes found him across the tiers, and the Cathar felt the weight of that gaze. "Then fight one," the human said quietly, "and see." The words carried through the perfect acoustics of the amphitheater, reaching every ear, every sensor. The Cathar's hunting membranes retracted fully, an involuntary submission response. The instructor stood motionless at his own podium, realizing that his carefully prepared lecture on comparative combat effectiveness had been completely dismantled. Every cadet in this room would remember this moment, not his statistics, not his charts, but this human's quiet testimony to what his species could do when pushed. The human cadet saluted, a crisp, precise gesture that belonged to a much older tradition than galactic protocols, and stepped back into the crowd. He returned to his seat with the same measured pace he'd used to approach, and settled into the simple chair as if nothing had happened. But everything had happened. The silence stretched, seconds becoming minutes. Finally, a Vraxian cadet somewhere in the upper tiers muttered to his companion, mandibles barely moving, "What kind of species breeds soldiers like that?" His companion, a 6-armed hexapod with distinguished service markings, replied just as quietly, "The kind that survives everything." The instructor's translator crystals flickered as he attempted to resume his lecture. His mandibles moved, his voice activated, but the words came out tight and uncertain. After 3 false starts, he simply dismissed the class early, 2 hours ahead of schedule. Cadets filed out slowly, none of the usual rush to freedom. They moved in small groups, speaking in hushed tones, occasionally glancing back at the lone human who sat waiting patiently for the amphitheater to clear. As the last of them filtered through the exits, the holographic display still showed that single line of text, burning in the darkness like a promise or a warning. In the corridors beyond, the phrase Earth Marines passed from cadet to cadet, species to species, spreading through the academy like ripples from a stone dropped in still water. They had asked for a number, demanded quantification, sought to reduce combat effectiveness to comfortable statistics. They got an answer. And the Galactic War Academy never laughed at humans again.